So, quick intro. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I moved down south, and then, went to high school. So I did high school and beyond in Georgia. Joined the military. Met my real estate mentor while I was in the military. Started getting into real estate, and within about 2 years, I got out of the military completely. And so now this is all I do full time: real estate investing.
Great, and I'm assuming you're loving it so far?
Absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Mm-hmm. I saw that you get the chance to travel around the world. Like you went to Israel just a few weeks ago?
Yeah, just got back from Israel last week. I travel frequently. Like really, whenever I come back from one overseas, I start looking for an excuse to go back abroad. So somewhere between every 4 to 6 months or so, I'm overseas.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a perk of the job. Was it something you knew getting into it, or?
No, actually. So really, it's kind of just grown into its own thing, where you do good business with investors, and then they refer you to their friends and say, "Hey, this guy knows what he's doing," and so it just becomes its own thing. So even in Israel, I went over there for a speaking engagement for investors who live in Israel but buy in America. And they said, "Hey, we'd like you to come over and speak." Not a problem. Just gives me an excuse to travel, which I enjoy doing.
How long were you there for?
Almost 2 weeks.
What was your favorite part about it?
The conference itself. So I like talking to people. I like getting more people to the investing table. There's a lot of misinformation out there in terms of how difficult it is to get started. It's not very difficult. I tell people the challenges that you're going to have with real estate are not outside, they're inside, they're between your ears, as far as fears and things of these what ifs, what if scenarios that people literally create in their own minds. Those are going to be the biggest challenges. So actually going to the conference and speaking to people and kind of unpacking some of those fears and letting them know that, hey, what's likely to happen, and then what we do in the event that those what if scenarios do happen.
Yeah, I like that you say common misconceptions. That's something I kind of noticed going through your Instagram, is that you're a very uplifting person. Where does that motivational content kind of come from?
Upbringing, definitely. Figuring out ways to get things done, as opposed to being a problem finder, be a solution finder. And a lot of it came from my upbringing. Like my mom, if we would tell her that we couldn't do something, she's going to respond with 5 or 6 ways and methods for how you can do it. So just kind of focus on what can we do. Not, I can't build a plan with what I don't have and what I can't do.
Yeah, and I really like that you're spreading that mindset out there, because it seems like it's helping.
Yes, definitely.
Now, is it only investors that you speak to when you go to these conferences?
For the most part, because that's generally who's going to be in attendance. But I like investing. Wasn't my first swing in business. So what you'll find with investing, there are certain principles that are just ubiquitous to all business, right? So I just enjoy talking to entrepreneurs. Doesn't matter what they're actually doing, because there are certain principles that you're going to need in place regardless of what actual avenue of commerce you're in. And so, I just think that entrepreneurs think differently.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. I understand that with real estate investing, I'm sure there's a lot of promotional aspect that goes along with it. Besides Instagram, how else do you self-promote yourself?
Really, social media. You'd be surprised at how effective both just posting on social media, but also paid advertisement on social media goes a long way in real estate investing, because real estate investing, contrary to popular belief, has very little to do with properties and everything to do with people, right? So if you don't know how to engage people and effectively convey your genuine concern for their, how can I help you? If you can't really confidently and competently answer that question, it's going to be hard for you to do any type of real estate transactions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think that can be learned?
Yes, yes. Well, I think almost anything can be learned. I think that if you come to the table with a genuine concern for people, then you're just that way ahead of the learning curve.
Yeah, definitely. That drive is kind of what pushes you forward, it sounds like.
Absolutely, absolutely. I
Um,
measure how well I do in a real estate transaction. You'll be surprised how many people literally hug you at the closing table. And so when you
oh,
can get a hug at the closing table, you know you've done an excellent job.
it sounds very rewarding at the same time, no?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, Now, you talk about helping people and really sharing a passion for your community. Is that a goal that you set for yourself when you first started your career?
Yes, yes. Because real estate is just a tool. The end goal is actually improving. In fact, the mission statement for my company is real estate is a powerful tool, and in the right hands, it can change the world, right? Because your whole community is based off of who lives where and where the stores are and that type of thing. So just for example, what they call food deserts, where you have disadvantaged communities that don't have grocery stores within any reasonable distance. As a real estate investor, I have the opportunity to say, hey, there's a building here. Let me talk to this group of investors. Let's see if they can purchase the building, lease it out to a person who wants to create a market. And so we're solving a community-wide problem.
Right. You know, when you say it, it sounds very honorable. Besides, helping your community and helping others, what other goals did you set for yourself at the beginning?
I have a goal. Most people have goals based on how much money they want to make. I have goals based on how much money I want to spend, um, putting into other people's pockets. So when like a traditional real estate transaction, there's going to be contracting. We're going to have to improve the property somehow. We're going to have to market the property somehow. We're going to have to manage it somehow. So my goal, I have financial goals based on how much I want to pay out to contractors, how much, so pretty much how much money I want to redirect back into the community in the form of creating jobs and income producing opportunities for the actual community.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It kind of sounds like you take each project on its own. You kind of separate each project and set separate goals for those. Is that you agree with that?
Exactly.
Yeah. As far as like your team goes in your company, can you tell us a little bit more about them?
Yes. So my everyone on my team is handpicked. So I don't do like an open, I'm not like interviewing people. It's people that I know that they operate with the same level of character as me. Because in business in general, but especially in real estate investing, your name, your whole everything operates based off of your character and your name and the relationships that you develop. Most of my deals, if I'm being honest with you, they happen over the telephone, text messages, and emails. Because once people know that you do good business, it's literally like, hey, do you want this house? You want to redevelop this? It's like, hey, yeah, it's a simple text message. We put it on paper, but I can get a client locked in to a deal just off of a text message and a phone call based on integrity. And so when it comes to building and scaling even my company, uh, I have to have people on my team who operate with that same level, because at the end of the day, no one cares about what your leasing agent did or your asset manager did. They care about, hey, Jeremy told me this person was good and it didn't work out. So I don't do business with people who do what I need them to do. I do business with people who believe what I believe.
Right. It sounds like you all have this agreement that teamwork is kind of the
Yeah.
basis of your entire company.
Yes.
Now you said you don't do interviews. Is that?
No, I don't. I've never interviewed anyone that's on my team.
Wow, that's interesting. So did they reach out to you or how did it work?
So one of the like my primary contractor, I found him while I was looking at properties. He was just talking to his friend. He happened to be next door talking to his friend, and so it's really just like an actual friendship. Like so, I said, hey, do you mind? I asked him if he knew who owned the property at first, right? Because you always want to engage the neighbors. And he said, we know who owns the property, and I do repair work. I said, great. Walk me through this property. Tell me what you would charge me. And his prices were reasonable. And then he would meet with me at other properties that I was looking to buy. And interesting story about him. So a lot of investors don't take on major repairs until they're really experienced. But since I met him on the front end of my investing activities, so my first rental property was just an easy win, what we call easy win, just cosmetic repairs, paint, carpet, that type of thing. The next property was a full scale, like like everything. Like they had the house was abandoned, vandalized. They had stripped out all the electrical, plumbing. You know what I mean? So that's a major renovation. And normally investors don't take that on just their second swing at bat. But I trusted this guy. He said, he can get it done. I said, "Are you sure?" I said, "I will take care of it." And from that point on, he's touched every property that we've done.
Well, it sounds like you're a real good judge of character there.
Yeah. That's what you really. But I have a mentor, and he told me, he said, you do business with people. He said, you do business with people that you don't feel you need to put on paper. Like we don't need a legal contract. Now we always use legal paperwork. Everything is on paper, but you don't do business with people that you feel like I need to put them on paper. And that made all the difference in how I built my company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Has it ever backfired on you?
Yes. So here's an interesting story. So, when you try to lead that way, you're not going to always get it right. But I still would say that for the percentage of times that we get it right and the repeat work that we're able to do with investors, it speaks for itself. But, there's always going to be someone who goes rogue. So here's a quick story. I had a partner where I would find the investors to buy the properties, and then he would handle all the acquisition side, talking to the actual property owner. So I engage investors. That's what I'm good at. I can talk to other investors and break down returns and everything, right? Because investors, we speak our own language, and it's normally in terms of returns. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. What will my return be? So I had another guy who would engage the property owners, and I taught him. So I taught him how to engage the property owners, how to do everything. And I sent him this particular deal, and he ended up, to kind of, make a long story short, what he did was he did a deal with the property owner, but he worked the deal with another investor instead of coming through, but the crazy thing about that story is that because he split this, whatever he made off of this deal with someone else, he only ended up making about $750. We spend more than that on marketing. So you excommunicated yourself from a company to make $750. So there are people like that who are just short-sighted, but I would say that was the best $750 that was for me to see that if you're judge of character for $750, But anyway, so yeah, that's that story. But yeah. I haven't had too many of those experiences.
$750. Wow, that's
yeah,
it's a little bit strange, hey?
You'd be surprised.
Now, do you often have any setbacks such as these, or does this happen?
So my setbacks really are self-imposed, and by that I mean that I have, in my mind, I'm always supposed to be operating at a higher level. Like I'm always, so those are generally my biggest challenges. I do repeat business, so I don't have, my investment firm runs more like a boutique. It's not like a Walmart that services any and everyone who's willing to do business. I have a core set of investors that I work with, and we just do repeat business. And so I don't have to worry about everything is pretty much in-house. So the way that my investment firm works, the traditional investor would have to find a property. So they're going to maybe, get a realtor to find a property, and then they got to get a contractor to do the repairs, and then they got to get a property management team and that type of thing. Everything is done in-house. So when our core group of investors are looking for properties, they know that we're going to find a property for them, that we're going to fix the property for them, and that we're going to fill it with a tenant and manage it. So all they do is cut a check and collect the returns. We make it hands off for them.
Right. It sounds like everything's very custom tailored.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So they let me know, hey, what type of return are you looking for? And the golden rule that my company runs by is that we never put together a deal that we wouldn't keep in our own portfolio. So we wouldn't even offer it.
That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like you guys are always staying true to your own values.
Yes, it's very value centered.
Hmm. It sounds like communication is a big thing as well with you guys, hey?
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
Now, you said like things can get pretty casual, like you'll just send each other text messages and stuff like that, uh,
Hmm.
and that social media has been a big help for you guys. How
Hmm.
else has like technology and innovation affected your company?
Well, as far as technology, it's it's good when it comes to the management of everything, right? I mean, the reason I can travel so often is because I have first have a team in place, but then we can just log in to our CRM and see what the status of a particular property is, and so technology is always making things to where we don't have to physically be present, and that's when you get the most freedom. It doesn't matter what line of work you're in. When you don't have to physically be present to keep the team rolling, it allows you to experience freedom while enjoying doing and knowing that we're delivering the results without having to physically be present.
Hmm. It sounds like a lot of things are kind of taking care of each other. Like you guys can rely on each other a lot, and that's what allows you to travel, right?
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
then when it comes to leadership, which I honed my leadership skills when I was still in the military, but I don't micromanage. At the point that I need to micromanage, I need to find someone else, right? So when it comes to my team, whatever they do, they understand the end goal, and however they get there. And if they make a mistake, I'll cover for them. I'll take the heat, and then we'll just correct it behind the scenes. But you want to allow people to have a level of autonomy and using their own judgment, because at the point where you need to rely on my judgment to get your job done, I'm going to have to find someone else.
Right. Now, that autonomy, do you kind of give that to them right off the bat?
Yes, because what you'll find with people is if you give them the expectation and the desired outcome, um, and you allow them to, get there on their own, that allows you to rapidly see whether you're going to fit or not. I'd rather know on the front end if you're going to fit, right? So that's kind of so. Is it risky? Could be. I mean, it could be. It just depends. But what's the most important asset is your time. So I'd rather find out in 30 days that you're not going to work out than to have you with me for 3 years and get the same results, right? Because if I can get not without sounding harsh, if I can get rid of you in 30 days, then that's uh, that is 35 more months that I saved that I could train someone else to do your job, right? So if I need to know now, you also have to give leeway for learning curves, right? So you have to be realistic and what you expect the person to be able to take on, especially if this is brand new to them. But I have found, because it's a people business, it's not a property business, contrary to what most people think, real estate is everything about people and very little about the property itself, is that if you operate with the same end goals and values that we hold to be true in our company, that and you use your best judgment to get that desired end state, ethically and morally, right? That I don't have to correct as much.
Right, right. So that level of trust that you give them, I'm assuming it makes them feel better and allows them to do their job the way they want to.
Exactly, exactly. And it keeps them vested because people are more um, engaged when they're a part of the solution. So instead of me saying this is what you need to do, when they get to come up with what they're going to do you're more vested when you actually had a vote in how things get done.
Right. It feels more like you're part of the company as opposed to just being an employee, right?
Exactly. You're not just a cog in a large machine.
And I feel like a lot of companies, that's the reality, right? You're kind of just this number in the system, but
Exactly. You feel expendable and replaceable.
yeah. Now it sounds like you're always on the job, always having to run the company of yours. How do you balance your work life and your personal life?
Ah, I'm not the best at that. I'll just be honest with you. I'm not the best at that because I'm always on my phone. Now, what I tell people is that I'd rather be chained to a phone than a desk, but a lot of things still come up. Like even in the middle of the night, I'm going to respond to a text message more than likely. I will respond even in the middle of the night. So I just have a very patient girlfriend, you know. But beyond that, if anyone out there knows how to balance this, I'm all open to suggestions. But I tell you, I'm not the best when it comes to the actual balancing part.
Yeah. Now we've spoken to some people, industry professionals all over the U.S., right? From teachers to doctors, to digital marketers, real estate investors as well, others, and a lot of them have had the similar issue with trying to balance work and life. It seems like all of you guys are workaholics, and no, we love that, but we also want to hear what you do outside of work too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we saw that you went skydiving. Just
Yeah.
How's that experience?
I go skydiving every year because skydiving was actually the experience that let me know that I needed to walk away from the military, because skydiving is this type of confront with fear, unlike any other, right? Because when you go skydiving, you have all of these ideations of what it's going to be like and how it's going to feel and that type of thing, and it's like 10 times better with like nothing that you imagined in your mind actually materialized, right? All the what ifs. And so I remember the first time I went, it was at the end of 2017. It was literally the last week of the year. And I was driving to work, and I got to work, I was driving to work, and I said, I want to do something audacious before the year ends. I only have like less than 7 days to make this happen. And so by the time I got to work, I knew what I wanted to do. So I worked in an office, right? And so I turned to my coworker and I said, you know what? I want to do something big before the end of the year. I want to go skydiving. And you know how guys, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. I said, I'm going to do it. He said, when? I said, this weekend, this Saturday. And so he said, I'll go with you. And then he got another one of our coworkers. So it's us three going skydiving. And now when it comes to trash talking, I am the king of trash talk. Listen, I could be losing a game and I'm still going to talk trash, right? So we all have made this pact, we're going. And so to make it real, we put in the reservation. So we went online to a company and we put in, paid our money to lock in our reservation. So it's real. It's not just an idea at this point. And so I'm talking trash. I'm saying, hey, out of us three, I'm going to be the first to jump. I want to jump first. And it's like, you ain't going to jump first. I said, I'm going to jump first. So then we get to the actual facility and I tell the instructors there, not only do I want to be the first to jump out of me and my three friends, I want to be the first off the plane completely. Because you go with a group, somewhere between 6 and 10 people, just depending on how many the plane can hold. So I said, I want to be the first. Now, I talk a lot of trash, and you watch this little training video, and they'll tell you, because you're strapped to your instructor, and they say, hey, if you tap twice, you don't have to jump. If you get up there, you get afraid, you tap twice, you don't have to jump. They'll just let the other people jump. So I'm talking all of this trash. I'm first, I'm positioned first to jump. And skydiving is not like a traditional airplane where, you have the small little window and you got that big door that's sealed shut. No, the door itself is just plexiglass. So you can see how far up you are. Yes, you can see it, right? And so we're going up. And at first I'm talking. There's this light. It goes from red to yellow to green. Green means it's time to jump. So it's not red, and I'm talking, it gets to yellow, I'm still talking. And but then I'm looking down and see how far I actually am. And I'm trying everything in my power to not tap twice because I've talked all of this trash, right? So I'm like, I'm fighting fear at this point. I'm like, what did I get myself into? And so at one point I literally had to tell, because I was having this conversation with the instructor that you're strapped to. And I'm looking over my shoulder and I was like, hey, I just need to focus right now. I can't talk right now. I just need to focus because I'm closing my eyes. I'm like, I'm trying everything in my power to not tap twice, right? So then the light turns green. It's time for me to jump out, right? And you're on your knees at the doorway before you roll out. And so he says, they tell you to look up, but I can't help but look down. I'm looking like I'm about to die, right? And so he pulls my head back and he pushes us out. And I close my eyes and then I open them because you're completely weightless. Like there's so much, what you don't understand is that there's so much wind pushing you up that you're floating. So that sinking feeling that people think is going to happen, like it's not the same as like going down on a roller coaster where you get that sinking feeling. And that's what most people imagine, but it's not. It's completely weightless. The whole thing, it's like floating. It's the best experience ever. And so the question, by the time we hit the ground, the question that immediately came to my mind: what else am I leaving on the table? What other amazing life experiences am I leaving on the table because of how I think it's going to play out? It hasn't actually happened. It's just these what if scenarios, right? And the answer immediately came to me is being a full-time investor and not being, because the military gives you a safety net. You're getting a guaranteed paycheck. You don't have to worry about being fired and that type of thing. But understand that safety comes with you're going to have to trade some of your dreams and goals to stay in comfortable and safety, right? And so another story. So I had two guys who jumped with me. One of the guys, I asked him the same question. I said, what other amazing life experiences? We're just landing. We still got to shoot someone when I'm asking him this. And he said, you know what? I think I want to be a pilot. Today, that gentleman is a pilot. Skydiving will change your life. So I go every year to kind of remind myself not to get in my own head and not to allow opportunities to pass me based on how I think it's going to be, because you could really be passing on some life-changing experiences by going by what you think it's going to be like.
Yeah, wow, that is an amazing story.
Yeah.
It sounds like a real metaphor for life right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's this quote from this movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It won Best Picture for the Oscars this year. Mahershala Ali was in it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a quote in the movie. Somebody says, the world is full of people afraid to make the first move. And that's all I can think of when you were sharing that. It's just, you get it in your head, right? And
yes, it's literally. So when people come to me and say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that and stuff like that, most of the times it's not a lack of money, it's not a lack of time, it's literally their own, limitations aren't assigned to you, they're accepted by you. You literally accept, hey, okay, I can't do this. Says who? Who says that you can't? You're the only person who's saying that you can't, but
Is that the advice you think you'd pass on to anybody?
Everyone, if I can. Listen, we're way more creative and capable of doing a lot more if we would give up the excuses that we've made. It's an excuse. I know that people think that everyone thinks that their excuse is legitimate. So you got to understand that, right? Everyone thinks that their reason to not get started is legitimate. Other people are making excuses, but mine are actually legitimate. But it's not. It's self-imposed.
Mm-hmm. And I think I actually even saw some of your Instagram posts that are similar to this topic.
Yes.
Do you think that's one of the things, when you go, because you do quite a bit of public speaking, correct?
Yes.
Is that something that you kind of preach to everyone that you speak to?
Yeah, when I teach real estate, most of what I teach is mindset. And I tell people, I said, coming in, when I first get on stage or I start speaking, I tell, listen, I can wrap up the real estate investing process in 2 minutes. It's never going to be the process that's going to stop you. It's always going to be some element of your fears, your concerns, your excuses. It's never going to be the actual process. The process works for anyone who engages in it. It's like a recipe. The recipe doesn't care who's making it. You're going to get the same outcome, but what is going to change is what you bring to the table.
It seems like you don't even have to be wanting to get into real estate investing to go to one of your talks, because this can be applied to just about anything in life.
Exactly. It's really just, what are you passionate about? I'll even talk people out of real estate investing, because if you tell me, if your goals are to people, I tell people that they create stairs where doors exist. So there's a direct path to what you want to do, but you say, well, I got to take this step and then that step and this step, and you're creating a stairway where it was just a door. So if real estate isn't the most direct path to what you're trying to do, I'm going to help you take that direct path.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that message is exactly what we're trying to do with this expert series. When we were looking for people to interview, we saw you and you stood out instantly, right? It seemed like you were so passionate about your work, not just your work, just the message you're trying to put out there. So I think this will be a great platform, hopefully, for you to add to that. Yeah. I
look forward to it. Anything that I can do to help get that message out, right? Because you're cheating the world. Everyone has some type of gift that was deposited that's going to help humanity overall. And when you give in to fear, you're cheating the rest of the world by not bringing your gift to the table.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember just growing up in school, the best teachers I had always said that there's no such thing as a stupid question. If you're thinking it, good chance somebody else is thinking it, so you might as well say it.
You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I remember you speaking about a mentor that you had when you first wanted to get into real estate investing. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yes. So, Mike, the mentor, and even though at this point, I'm doing my own real estate, I still refer to him as my mentor. But the way that I met him, he was talking to another guy about real estate investing, and it wasn't what he was talking about; it was how he was talking about it that engaged me. So at that point, I had just bought my first house, and like 2 months prior. And I knew nothing about investing because even when you buy a house, the realtor and the banks and the closing attorneys, they handle everything. You just show up and sign your life away on closing day. And so I heard him talking to another guy. Typically, when we overhear a conversation, we kind of just like, kind of put your ear and you just, eavesdrop. But I was so engaged, not by what they were talking about, because I knew nothing about real estate investing. It's just how they were talking about it, like so passionate. So I said, hey, gentlemen, it just sounds like some wisdom is being discussed. Do you mind if I eavesdrop? They said they don't care. They just had their conversation like I wasn't even there. So then I ran into Mike. I didn't know his first name or anything at this point. I didn't know him. We were strangers. I ran into him in the hallway by himself about maybe 3-4 minutes later, and I said, hey, I just bought this house. It's just me by myself, this 4-bedroom house. And I just heard you talking about real estate investing. He just listened. He said, He said, are you renting out your room? I was like, no, I want to be comfortable. I want to, come home to my own privacy and stuff. He said, you're leaving money on the table, rent out your rooms. And I tell people that's the yes that changed my life. I didn't know his name. I said, I just agreed. 2 days later, he texted me. We met at a gas station. He drove me around the city pointing out all of his properties and said, listen, this is how I did it. I rent out my rooms, start buying houses, and now I buy buildings. And it's like I said, so we think that we have to have all the pieces of the puzzle figured out. And what if he does this? And what if he's trying to scam you? What if sometimes you just have to pull the trigger.
Right. Those qualities I think you've picked up on yourself, because I'm assuming you've been the mentor for others as well.
Absolutely. I have a mentorship program, and I'm also helping other investors. I tell investors, whatever level that they're operating at now, I'm going to push you to the next level. I don't like to master monotony where you're doing the same thing over. If you can do it in your sleep, it's time to learn something new.
Mm-hmm. The people that come to you for mentorship, do you think they put up those walls for themselves as well?
Everyone does coming in. Everyone does because it's something new, right? And your body, just the basic biology of the human body, it's always in survival mode, right? So it's always going to avoid anything new because that means that we have to create some new defenses to make sure that we survive the experience. So I think that everyone has a measure of fear and concerns coming into anything that's new, but I think that it's important to distinguish fear from danger. Danger actually poses a threat. Fear is imagined.
Can you tell us about some of the techniques that you use to help these people kind of get past these fears?
Absolutely. So one of the things I ask a lot of questions, right? And so if I just tell you what the answer is, you'll be like, maybe it's for me, maybe it's not. But if I ask you the right question and you tell yourself the answer, you'll immediately accept it. So recently I had one of my mentees, he said, hey, instead of doing the whole investor thing, I want to become a real estate agent. Now, it wasn't my job to tell her whether that was a good decision or not, but I know that that's what she wanted from me. She wanted to know what my thoughts were. So I just asked her a question. Well, why do you want to be an agent? She says, well, I don't have enough incoming leads. I said, well, how many people do you talk to? She said, I don't talk to many people. Well, why don't you talk to people? Because, I'm not very comfortable with it. I said, well, do you think that being an agent is going to be any different? You're still going to have to talk to people no matter what. So it kind of circled back to the real problem wasn't that she wanted to be an agent. It's that she was uncomfortable talking to people. So let's address that actual issue.
Right. That makes sense because, like you said, the problem wasn't her wanting to become an agent. It was within herself. Now, did she kind of realize that off the bat, or did it take some work?
No, it just took a series of questions, and so then now that she gave herself the answer, now we can see what the actual problem is. Then I said, okay, why? So she didn't feel comfortable. She said she didn't feel like she knew enough information. I said, listen, everyone respects an honest answer. I don't know right now, but I'll bring you the answer. If you don't have to know everything, just tell the person that you're going to be accountable to bringing them the answer, and most people will respect that. No one's going to look at you differently for not knowing something.
Mm-hmm. And I know everyone's different, but these questions that you ask, is it usually the same process you go with anyone that's looking for advice from you?
Pretty much, yeah. It's going to be a series of questions because we have to unpack what the actual issue is, and most times it's not going to be on the surface level.
Right. Now, where'd you pick up on that? Because it sounds like it's more of a psychology background that you have than it is.
That's interesting. At the time that I met my real estate mentor, if you would have asked me then, what did I want to do? Like, what was my goal? It was actually to be a marriage and family counselor. So I spent a lot of time reading those type of books and understanding, unpacking issues and that type of thing. So then even my teaching style is much like that. It's actually uncovering, hey, what are your real fears and concerns? Because it's not the process. And the hurdle is not going to be outside of yourself. It's always going to be inside.
Yeah, I've only realized because my sister, she's a psychology major, and she talks about this stuff all the time, and I line up exactly with what you're saying. So yeah, I've definitely come familiar with understanding and really trying to get to the root of the problem for a lot of people, right? Because it goes a long way, for sure. So now, just to go back to where you're at right now in Georgia, can you tell us a little bit about your city?
Yes, so Augusta is the home of the Masters, which is one of the biggest golf tournaments. So that Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson and all, they always converge around March, April timeframe for the Masters here in Augusta. It's the second largest city in Georgia. In terms of investing, it's second largest to Atlanta, but the properties are about half price. So you'll have a lot of investors in Atlanta and other bigger parts of the country. But they'll spend their money here in Augusta because they can get a higher return on their money than elsewhere. So it's a growing city, plenty of opportunity to invest. And so what I do is I represent investors who are looking to get started here. So they'll consult with me when it comes to, hey, what are the good parts of the city? What do you think about these properties and these type of things?
Mm-hmm. Have you been to the Masters yourself?
No, interestingly enough, I've never had an interest. And I think that's probably part of living in the city. I think that if you live in any type of touristy city, the local population aren't as excited about the things. So like when I lived in Philadelphia, that's where the Liberty Bell was. Had it not been for a childhood field trip, I probably would have never went. Like it's one of those things, like if I ever wanted to see it, I could just, same thing with the Masters. Like I guess I don't see it as this big thing because it happens every year. For someone who lives outside of the city, going to the Masters might be a once in a lifetime opportunity for them, but it's like for us, it doesn't really feel like opportunity because it happens every year.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So our marketing office, where we're doing all of our work right now, it's in Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada. And one of our main attractions is the West Edmonton Mall. It's one of the biggest malls in North America. Now, a lot of Edmontonians, they don't like going there as often because one, the parking sucks. And it's kind of just like a one-trick pony. Like you go once and you're like, oh, it's just a mall, right?
Yeah.
People from out of town, they love going there and they fill it up. It's just a mall, man. That's not
exactly. That's exactly it.
I'm gonna ask you though, what are some of the hidden gems out in Augusta?
Hidden gems, I would say, like real estate or just.
Anything about the city, whether it's a restaurant, a good
okay. So lots of good restaurants. They have there's one Jackie M's, which is it has a small place in my heart because they're from Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia is known for their cheesesteaks, but you have a lot of people who make Philly cheesesteaks, but they're not done the right way. You really have to be from Philly to make it the right way. It's just one of those things. So since the owners are actually from Philly, they make their own bread, and then they make the cheesesteak the right way. So I actually hold a lot of my meetings at Jackie M's just because. So that's definitely a hidden gem for me. And I mean, culturally is diverse because the military base is here, Fort Gordon. So that's an actual good thing when it comes to the South. A lot of southern parts of the United States, it's not really as culturally diverse as other places. And so for Augusta to have that military base there, it does add a lot to the cultural diversity, which is important to me because you want to learn from other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, does that cultural diversity kind of affect the food there, the nightlife? How is how's the culture changed since you have all these different people from different nationalities coming in?
I think that it definitely affects. I've been so far removed from the nightlife, but so I couldn't necessarily tell you what's going on. Interesting tidbit though. When I was 20 years old, and my first business that I had, I got my business license for was actual entertainment marketing. So I actually was very involved in nightlife, say 10 years ago or so. But now it's there is an active nightlife. I do know that much. I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you that it's good because it's not as busy as Atlanta. So heavy traffic, and Atlanta is just known. Their 9 o'clock traffic is ridiculous. Like you're gonna celebrate about 2 birthdays on the way to work. So it's not like that. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, where you have a growing city, but without a lot of traffic and without excessive crime and that type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like it's growing as well.
Yes, always growing because in fact the military is bringing more soldiers into the military installation here, so that's going to be great for investors like me because most people prefer to rent than buy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it kind of brings back that repeat business, right? Just that cycle that you keep going. Now, what are like the attitudes of the different neighborhoods like? Are there certain areas that are a lot different than others, or is the community as a whole kind of similar?
So there are always going to be areas that are pretty much income based. Like if you make a lot of money, then you'll want to live there. If you don't make a lot of money, you'll want to live there. What I tell people when it comes to real estate investing, they'll say, is this a good neighborhood? Understand, if people are living there and they're paying to live there, you know what I mean. You can buy anywhere as long as there's someone willing to pay you to live there. That's a good neighborhood because at the end of the day, investors don't invest based on preference. We invest based on return. And so, just because I wouldn't necessarily live there or wouldn't prefer to live there doesn't mean that the neighborhood itself is bad. That just means that doesn't mean my preference. So, on the investing spectrum, Augusta is great. Just the cost of for real estate is very affordable, so it's a low entry point. But then, learning the different areas, and now what only thing that affects is understanding the mindset of the people and their preferences. That's going to let me know how much rent I can get for a property in the different parts. But everything when it comes to real estate is based on what will people spend. That's what I mean. What will people spend? So that's the value of anything. Well, how much rent? Well, what will people spend? So I think that gives me a competitive advantage because understanding that. I mean, you could, I guess, try to Google and look on different metrics and find out what people are spending. But if you actually make it a business to talk to people, as I do, then I'll go to a neighborhood and just ask the neighbors. Like, if I'm interested in a property, hey, do you mind if I ask you a personal question? And they'll say, most times they'll say no, but they'll be kind of guarded. And then when I ask them, hey, how much do you pay for rent? People, they were expecting something wild. So when I ask them something like rent, they'll oh yeah, this is $800 or something like that. So now I know, hey, this is what people are willing to spend on this part of town.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's the best process, just getting to know the person?
Yes. I cannot, and it cannot be overemphasized the importance of actually engaging people. Many newer investors try to get started by doing a lot of computer research. You can't get to know people from behind a computer screen. You've got to actually get out there and talk to people.
Yeah, Same thing for us. I mean, I did my own background research on yourself, right? Just through your Instagram, just tried to really gauge what you were all about. Obviously, I got that you're very motivational. You're very passionate about your work. You're hardworking. But just speaking with you through this teaches me a whole lot more than.
Exactly. So nothing replaces actually engaging in genuine conversation with people. And so I built a business on that. It's just talking to people. The properties will come, right? If the person feels that, hey, you have my best interest in mind, they don't mind doing business with you. People do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like that's pretty easy for you guys, though, since that trust is built from the framework of your company, and it's a lot easier for you guys to just transfer it over to the buying process. So
Exactly. Yeah. I'll tell people there's two levels of transactions or business dealing, right? Transactional, right? Which is like, what was the name of the last cashier that rung you up? No one knows. That was a transactional exchange. Now, when it comes to working on a trust level, right? The trust level is, I know you by name, and I will do what we call a handshake deal, where we're going to put it on paper because it has to go to the closing attorney and everything like that. But just a handshake, and I know that you're serious about doing business.
that makes a lot of sense. How do you usually network with these people? Do you go to like certain events, or do you have any tips and tricks that you use to meet others and generate leads?
I'm talking. So when it comes to generating leads, I mean, you can do the traditional tactics like sending out offer letters and postcards and bandit signs or whatever you do. But if you're not good at talking to people, you just right. The way I liken it to, because a lot of newer investors, they want to know the tactics and these type of things. I really look at it like trying to learn pickup lines. Like, you can either try to get girls by learning pickup lines, or you can take a genuine interest in who she is as a person, and you can engage that way, right? So I can teach the tactics and tricks and stuff like that, but I'd rather people focus on, hey, take a genuine interest in taking care of this property owner, right? So to give you an example, I had a property owner recently where she's in her 60s. She had a mortgage on her property. She wanted to downsize, but she knew she wasn't going to be able to move into a senior care facility, and also pay the mortgage. So I said, listen, this is what we can do. You owe too much for your property for us to just buy it outright. There wouldn't be any profit in there, but we can take over your mortgage payments. And again, get a hug at closing. So you have to take a genuine interest in how can I, first off, if I can help you, right? Because I can't just make the assumption that I can help everyone, right? I'm not Superman. So can I help you? And if there's a yes, then how can I help you?
That's great. That is amazing, honestly. Now you talked about what you love about your city, maybe some of the different neighborhoods, and really getting to know your community. Is there anything that restricts this or kind of annoys you about Augusta?
Not really, and it's not because things don't exist. It's just that I look at problems as opportunities to, you can either point out the problem or point out the solution, right? And there's no progress to be made by pointing out the problem that everyone knows exists, right? But problems are opportunities, especially in real estate. They're there. Every problem is a profitable opportunity. Every problem, right? So there are neighborhoods that are blighted, that a lot of vacant homes and vandalized homes exist. For me, I actually want to repair those neighborhoods. I want to bring them back up to par. And it's interesting because my contractor has lived in Augusta his whole life, and he's in his 60s. So we've done this, many times where we'll be driving down the street, and he could tell me, hey, back in the 80s, this used to be that, this used to be that. And so when you hear about how some of these neighborhoods were actually prominent, these are where all the doctors and lawyers lived and stuff like that, I'm like, wouldn't that be great if we can bring that back to fruition, right? It's that's why real estate, it's just a tool, but it gives you access to actually leave a great impact on your community.
Mm-hmm. Now that kind of leads us into our next question is a lot of that rebuilding, is that what you would do if you were in charge for a day of the entire city?
Yes, definitely. I would bring a lot of these neighborhoods back up to their prominent days. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about one of these neighborhoods?
Yeah, so there's we're doing a project now in a subdivision called Apple Valley, and right now it's more of a rental market than a buyer's market, meaning that if I got approved for a bank loan, I'm probably not moving into Apple Valley. But it's my understanding that back in the 80s, that this was the neighborhood for doctors and lawyers, and you know what I mean. So we're doing a renovation there, and I'll use that as a marketing piece and reach out to the neighbors and say, hey, we just did a whole renovation at this address. We're looking to buy more properties in this neighborhood, because just knowing that and the structure is still there. I mean, you'll see these beautiful 5-bedroom houses and such, but a lot of them are vacant and abandoned.
Yeah. Why do you think they changed so much? Do you think they just became outdated and people moved elsewhere, or?
Everyone wants what's new. So when a new part of town becomes the hot spot, well, then the doctors and the lawyers who could afford to live there are going to move to the hot spot, and then so that particular community will decline and the new community will ascend. So that's really, real estate investing is like a game of musical chairs, right? Because the city lines are always going to stay the same. It's just, hey, what's the new hot spot? And by definition, if something is new, then something has just become old.
How do you kind of forecast these new trendy neighborhoods?
So real estate investing is a slow moving game. So the neighborhoods don't spring up overnight. So you can kind of see the development. And then there are things that are just kind of dead giveaways. Whenever you see the city adding new infrastructure, widening highways and streets and updating plumbing and stuff like that, they don't do that out of the kindness of their heart. There's something coming there. And so if you know what's coming there, then you can kind of beat them to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like someone such as yourself has a pretty good eye for it. So
yeah, definitely. People drive past opportunity every day, but I notice stuff like that. Like it is really bad. I even when I go on vacation, I notice, like when I was in Israel, I was like, okay, so they use marble tile 18 by 6 inches. Like, I'm always looking at, it's just the real estate never leaves.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's not work for you anymore, and you really enjoy what it is that you're doing, right? So
absolutely,
I'm sure it's a lot easier that way.
Yes, definitely.
Now, bring us to like the end of our interview with our last segment here. We like to look at overarching trends and stuff that's kind of going on all over the world. Now, one of the things is this change in job positions and careers. Now, you stress in your Instagram that the 8 to 5 or the 9 to 5 or whatever it is should be eliminated, and you want to create this generational wealth. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, because the basic premise is that if you can do it as an employee, you can do it as an owner, right? So if I'm being paid to do it, then obviously it's profitable. Right? I don't care if it's flipping burgers at McDonald's. If I can flip burgers at McDonald's, I can open my own food truck. And I just think that the best position to be in is not simply being paid to complete work, but paid to do something that you're passionate about. And so if you can put those two together and actually own it, then even if your children aren't passionate about it, they don't have to run the company to own the company. You see what I'm saying? And so I just believe that everyone should pursue what they're passionate about and do it in such a manner that it's profitable, because we all have bills, but to pursue that, because you're not going to get a second chance at the thing called life, right? You're not going to be in your 80s and like, hey man, I need a do-over, let me go back to my 30s. That's not going to happen. So and a lot of people, again, based on what they believe to be true, they'll say, well, I can't start a business, or it's impossible, or it's too difficult, and that type of thing. I think the most difficult thing is to live with regret.
Yeah, the thing with these simple 9 to 5 jobs is that there's so many of them right now, but it seems like they're slowly decreasing. People are starting to realize, like, I want to do whatever it is I want to do, and they'll start something on their own, and they'll create more opportunities for someone. One of the people we interviewed, he's the owner of a marketing firm out in Minneapolis, I believe, and he tells us about some of his employees and how some of them only work 3 days out of the 5 days in the week. Some of them have just their own hours. They can work from home, and he really gives them the flexibility. And in turn, this gives him better productivity. This gives him happy workers. This gives him a chance to really understand wherever it is his employees are coming from. Now, he said if he restricted them to this 9 to 5, they wouldn't be happy with their work, and that would show, right? So is this kind of the angle you've taken with your company as well? Is really
Absolutely.
generational wealth?
So to get buy-in, first off, literally everyone on my team is either an active or aspiring business owner, meaning that I don't want employees in the traditional sense. I want, people who are just using this opportunity to learn and then launch off and do whatever you learn about business management and how to run a company from me, you just use it for your own, right? Because you can't leave my company behind. I'm already leaving my, but I just think that when you work with entrepreneurs, you work with a different breed of person. Not someone who's looking for safety and security, someone who is confident in their ability to build security, not to look for security. And like we mentioned earlier, a lot of autonomy so that they can come up with their own solutions and using their own judgment. And so, it's just an overall win when you're not confining people. And I think that a part of the push toward entrepreneurialism that we're seeing in the culture now stems from companies treating people like numbers, like they're just cattle herding. And, this newer generation, whereas the oldest generation just accepted that as being normal, the newer generation is like, nah, that's not for me. That's not for me. I saw how it ended up for my parents and grandparents, and I don't want that same fate.
Absolutely. I think that's the direct result of seeing it from your parents and grandparents, is that you kind of go, I don't want to live that life where you're sacrificing all of this stuff to just be, stuck, I guess.
Yes, that's the best way to put it, stuck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Moving on to just our last question here for you, a little bit about Philadelphia rappers, right? So there's these new guys, there's Lil Uzi Vert, Meek Mill, of course, and then there's the older guys like Will Smith and what have you. And you talk about you did talk about in your Instagram how you used to be a rapper yourself.
Yes.
Do you kind of wish you still were, or do you do it every now and then?
No, well, I still like music, and I don't keep up with a lot of the newer rappers. Like I've heard Meek Mill's work, and of course, Will Smith. Will Smith is like a hometown. Listen, a block party isn't a block party unless someone plays Summertime. It's a real life thing in Philadelphia. But the newer rappers and such, I'm not really particularly fond of. But just understanding intellectual property now and understanding more of the business behind music. In fact, that's literally how I transitioned. I transitioned from wanting to be a rapper to wanting to be in business once I learned the business behind making music, how intellectual property works and that type of thing. You'll have even rappers like Eminem. Eminem does not go on tour. Because you start to learn that as the rapper, you get all the fame and publicity, but you're worked very hard. If I can just own the intellectual property and make money that way, that's what the publisher. So I always tell myself, if I were to ever get back into music, it would be as a publisher, because I get the money without the stress and I have the freedom to travel and such. I'm not, doing a 60-day tour, you know what I mean? Living out of my suitcase for a year. I'd rather just be able to own the intellectual property. It's no different from real estate. It's going to continue to make money month after month without actually having to work.
Yeah, I think that touring itself can take a lot out of a person.
Mm-hmm.
You see it all the time in magazines, tabloids, how these people change so much once they start touring, right?
Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of it has to do with how you thought it was going to be, and then the physical demands on your body, and then taking different drugs, whether they be prescribed or otherwise, just to keep up with the demands of. Because people, when they pay for a concert, they don't want to see you tired and sluggish, right? So you've got to do something to help you meet the expectation of what they paid for. So I just think that but if you're passionate about it, I'm sure that your passion is going to fuel you to a certain degree. But then, even passion doesn't trump sleepiness when you're fatigued.
Mm-hmm. Now, does that love for music kind of come from when you were a child, or?
I think I just have a way with words. Like I think that if there were a superpower, it would be words. Like I'm good at writing written proposals. I'm good at speaking publicly. So rapping is just really, word playing with words, and so just being a good orator.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can see that. I mean, you're a great speaker. Everything you say kind of has a lot of thought and meaning to it, so I can definitely see that side. Would you call yourself a poet, or is that?
Okay, so funny story. It's a true story too. So in high school, I wasn't the most studious person. Like people see me now, and I read a book. I read book. In fact, I just read a book yesterday, like an entire book, right? So people see that and they think that, oh man, he must have really, was really, a good student. No, I wasn't. I would go to sleep in class, or true story, I would start class discussions. I would get everyone off task. I would get the teacher involved. See, that's the key to starting a good class. If I talk to my neighbor, that's considered the class distraction. If I engage the teacher, now it's a class discussion. That's the difference. And so I would go to sleep in class. Even though my senior high school, my high school yearbook, my teacher wrote, "My hat goes off to you for being able to get good grades and go to sleep." Like I would go to sleep in my class every day. But what I learned during that time, I'm always engaged in social, like that. I came to school for social activity. I didn't come to school to learn. But the other half of that coin is that I could always teach myself. Like I could read the textbook on my own. Like I would take the textbook home, read it, and so I would know what the next lesson was going to be. So by the time I got to school, I wasn't really engaged in But going back to poetry, so in high school, I wasn't the studious person, right? I was more of the either class discussion or going to sleep. But I wanted girls to know that I had a serious side. I'm always just, starting these wild conversations like, who do you think cheats more, men or women? And then the whole class is off topic, right? So I started writing poetry just so girls could see a serious side of me. Don't know if it ever really worked, but And then I learned to I would memorize my work so I could just stop to talk to a girl like, the way he felt, the way he, you know what I mean? Just recite poetry, just seem deep. Like I said, I don't think it ever really worked, but in my mind, that was my goal. I was like, let them know I do have a serious side.
Yeah, it sounds like it's all about self-expression, and you kind of found that sounded like through poetry, through rap, and now even through your career. It sounds like you're very
exactly
in tune with who you are, right? And you want to get it out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. That pretty much brings it to the end of our interview. Thank you again, Jeremy. This was.
No, thank you for the opportunity, and I hope that people are able to glean from this and take action. When people say, "Well, thank you," I tell them everyone the same thing. Thank me by taking action.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and we're gonna try our best to make to get your message out there, promote your Instagram, promote your work, everything about you, because we enjoyed all of your content and we want to get as much out there as possible. Right.
I appreciate it.
So just to kind of give you a heads up on what you can expect here. So we're running up on just over an hour. Now, most of our interviews are cut up into different segments, and we'll launch that through Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, right? So Instagram and Facebook, they'll be for our shorter clips, some of the certain topics that we had talked about throughout the entire interview. And then YouTube will be for the longer clips, whether they're 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to even the full interview itself. These will be launched. Each expert will have a weekly launch. So we actually distributed our first interview today with a teacher from Philadelphia. His name is CJ Reynolds. I don't know if you know of him, but he's a great guy. He's a YouTuber himself, and he's very passionate about his work, such as yourself. And he loves kids. He loves these kids that he teaches. He teaches a grade 9 literature class. So it's awesome if you want to check that out. Yeah. Now, yours will be just a couple weeks down the line here after we cut your video. It usually takes us about 2 or 3 days to cut it, so you can expect that probably by the end of the week. Now, we'll send you the launch schedule as well, just so you have a clear understanding of what's going out there on these certain days. Now, something we do is still images, and we'll pull quotes from this interview, and we'll put them in there and toss them on our stories, just a way to promote our videos. Now, if you wanted, we were going to ask you for 5 of your best or favorite images of yourself. If you could just email them to us, or if you're too busy to do that, we can just pull from your Instagram if you give us permission.
Yeah. Either way, I'll send you some via Instagram, and when you tag the post or whatever, tag me in them, so that way I can repost them on my page as well.
Of course, absolutely. Is there anything else you wanted to promote at this time? Like, is there anything else going on? Do you have you sound like you could be a writer. You sound like you could be a author, man. So.
I don't have anything particularly going on. I have a new mentorship program that'll be starting in January, and that's going to be a higher level. That's really for people who are trying to start their own investment firm. So that's more than just, hey, I want to buy one rental property and see how it does. It's more like, hey, I want to actually do this on a higher level. But outside of that, just really getting the message out there. Take action. Whatever you're trying to do, actually do it, and don't be confined by your own fears.
Great. Yeah, we'll definitely get that out there. I think we have the same vision with this. We're passionate about what we do. You're passionate about what you do. So I think it'll be a good combo.
I like it. I appreciate it, Brandon.
Yeah. Now, is the email the best way of reaching you, or just Instagram DM?
Either or. I check both of them religiously. So
Yeah.
I'll put you the phone.
Yeah. And I'm enthused that you're very familiar with that stuff, because a lot of people, we wait a couple days for the response, and we kind of don't know what to do with that content, right? So yeah, thank you again for that. All right. Yeah, I don't want to take too much of your time here. We had an hour already, and I know you're busy, guys. So
You're good. I appreciate it.
yeah, hey, thank you very much, man. We'll keep in touch. And yeah, all I can say is thank you very much, because you taught me a lot today. So yeah, I hope I could teach you a little bit as well.
I like it. Keep pushing.
All right. Take care, Jeremy. Have a good one.